Okay, well, good evening. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. I am Mark Fertucci. I'm a senior transportation engineer and planner at Fuss & O'Neill in Manchester, Connecticut. We are the consultant who has been retained to conduct the corridor study for West Main Street in Waterbury. We were retained by NVCOG, the Naugatuck+Valley Council of Governments. They are administering the project in conjunction with the city of Waterbury. So I just wanted to go over a couple of quick housekeeping items here with you tonight. Just first, you are all currently muted. You're in mute mode. We will unmute you when you raise your hand when we get to the discussion part of the program, which we expect will be about 5:30. When we get to that point, you can raise your hand using the button there, the little hand button. Also, we encourage you to type in questions. You can use the question feature on the side of the screen to ask questions to any of the organizers here on the panel tonight. I did want to mention as well that this meeting is being recorded. So after the meeting, we will be able to send a link around, and you can forward it to others who may not have been able to be here tonight and watch it later on. So again, just wanted to review the agenda for this evening. We're beginning here in the process of welcoming you all and doing introductions to the project team. We will also be then moving into a review of project-specific materials. So we'll be describing the study limits, also looking at talking about some of the background of the project, how it's getting funded, the goals and objectives. We'll be talking about specific scope items and some of the tasks that we will be completing as part of this project, and also reviewing the project schedule. From there, we are going to go over just an overview of the street sections and the corridor, some of the initial issues that we see along the corridor, and some of the the items that we're really going to be focusing on in this study. And then from there on out, this is where we really want to hear from you. We're going to be discussing the existing conditions along the corridor, and just hearing your thoughts on what you see as issues. Whether it's a driving issue, pedestrian or bike issues with transit, maybe some thoughts you have on how we can improve the corridor. And then we'll wrap it up with talking about the next steps with the project. We're just getting started at this point with the project. We'll talk about the schedule as we head into the remainder of 2021. Also review the project website that we have set up and developed, as well as a pretty cool interactive map that you can go into and enter comments on the corridor with your thoughts of where there's issues you'd like to see us address. This is just kind of a rough guideline of the times. As we go along, we may end up needing longer or shorter for some of these time periods, and as we get into the public input. But this is just a rough guideline at this point. And apologize that I was not. Can you see me now, Matt?
Yeah.
Okay. I was not showing my screen. So hello, everyone. All right, moving on. So just wanted to introduce the project team. You should be seeing everyone on here. Leslie Barrowin is our project manager. She is from NVCOG, who I mentioned is administering this project. You'll be hearing from her in a little bit, and she is assisted by Christian Mayer. Again, I'm Mark Vertucci. I am the consultant project manager from Fuss & O'Neill. Matt Skelly, you just saw. Matt is our public involvement lead on this project, and you'll be hearing from him in a little bit as well. And then Francisco Gomes as well from Fitzgerald and Halliday. They are our sub-consultant on the project, and they're helping us out with the website and interactive map preparation. Also, they're looking at some pedestrian and bicycle issues and recommendations in the study, and they're also conducting a market and economic analysis, which we'll talk about in a bit as well. So talking about our project corridor, did want to talk about the limits of the project, where we're going to be looking at our transportation improvements. The corridor begins in the west at Route 8, Riverside Street. It proceeds easterly through the new intersection of Jackson Street, which has just been connected. Thomaston Avenue proceeds easterly towards the intersection of Willow and Meadow Street, and then continues on to the Waterbury Green area, including the intersection of North, South, East, and West Main Street. So did want to point out that this western portion of the corridor is actually a state-owned and maintained road. And then the eastern part, as you get east of Willow Street, that is a city roadway. So, you know, we do have some involvement. The Department of Transportation is involved with this project and is participating, and will be assisting us with our analysis and recommendations as we move forward with the project. Also wanted to point out, you know, there are a lot of other projects going on in this area, and this is a good opportunity to kind of build off of them and feed off of these other projects. Obviously, we have the Tiger project just to the south of the corridor, where we've had a bunch of great improvements that have just been made on Freight Street, some streetscape improvements. As I mentioned, Jackson Street has been connected. The DOT is doing a mixed master study just to the northwest of the study limits. Some of that study is overlapping with ours. And of course, we have the East Main Street study that has been done as well, the road diet study. We're connecting into East Main Street on the easterly end of our corridor as well. So this is a great opportunity to build on some of these other projects as we move forward with this study. At this point, I'm going to ask Leslie to give us a brief overview of, you know, kind of how this project came about, and how it's getting funded, and the overarching goals and objectives.
Thanks, Mark. Is there any way to make it full screen? It looks like it's not completely full screen for me, but
okay. Let's see here.
If not,
I will try to do that as you're talking. I'm seeing this. This is the first time I have used this software, so attempting to. Let's see. I think it's because I am in slideshow mode. It might be.
Yeah, I think so.
Let's see here. Let's try this. Let's try reading view. Is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's better.
Great.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. Like Mark said, I'm Leslie Berwin. I'm a senior planner at NVCOG, Naugatuck+Valley Council of Governments, and I'm also the project manager for the West Main Street Corridor Study. Thank you for joining tonight. So I just wanted to give a little bit of background and talk about just kind of how the project got started and some kind of our main goals and objectives. So originally, NVCOG applied for funding in 2017. The project was awarded funding in 2019, and we went through a competitive bid process, and the project team chose Fuss & O'Neill as the primary consultant. They're running the study along with Fitzgerald Halliday and FHI. FHI is going to be doing more of the website interactive mapping, which we'll show you later in a market analysis. We really did start the project in October, so you know we're really in the beginning phase of the project. And the reason why NVCOG is leading the project versus the city project is that we really believe that West Main Street is a a regionally significant corridor. The street not only is it a corridor for just like kind of Waterbury traffic, but it's also a really primary connection across the Naugatuck River, and it connects to several large employers and other destinations, including Yukon, Waterbury, a couple hospitals, and other large religious institutions along the street, and several state offices. So we believe that it's a regionally significant corridor to study. And as far as funding goes, so 80% of the funding from this project comes from federal dollars, specifically the Surface Transportation Block Grant, which is a program of the Federal Highway Administration. 10% is state funding, and then there's a 10% match from the city of Waterbury. So really the main objective of the study is to really better understand the challenges and the issues of this corridor as it relates to all modes of transportation. So walking, riding a bike, taking transit, driving, and to really come up with some solid solutions on how we can make this street safer and operate more efficiently. The goal is that we'll have the final product will be a final report. We'll have conceptual drawings that will really be based on all the data that we've collected over and analyzed over the past year, with recommendations on what designs will make it a safer road, not just again for automobile traffic, but we want to encourage more walking. We want to encourage safer biking, easier crossings, safer driving, less delay for transit, and also encourage economic development along the street. So Mark is going to talk a little bit more about the scope of work and just kind of how the different phases of our project. But really, just want to highlight that this project is a mixture of quantitative analysis and qualitative. And what I mean is that, yes, we're going to be studying traffic flow, traffic patterns on West Main Street and a lot of in the side streets and creating a traffic model. But on the other hand, we're really focused on gathering input from you through public outreach. This is the first meeting out of 3 that we've scheduled. We will have an interactive map on the website, which we would want your input on. And then we're also conducting stakeholder interviews with people who regularly use the corridor. So right now we're in the phase where we're really looking to get as much input as we can so that we can put together some really good design concepts. And then the next phase is sharing them with you and to get your feedback at the next meeting. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Mark. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Leslie. As Leslie mentioned, I'm just going to briefly review our scope of work and some of the items we're going to be looking at in this project. And Leslie mentioned the robust public outreach and engagement effort. So we have a series of public meetings that are scheduled. This is the first overall public informational meeting or workshop where we're just getting started with this project. We're in our existing conditions and phase, looking at existing issues, and we're really here just to introduce the project and get your initial thoughts and ideas. The next meeting we'll get more into our findings on our existing conditions analysis, and then we'll start to brainstorm some recommendations for improvements, and we'll have a third meeting where we'll present what we came up with and get your input on that. So it's going to be an iterative process as we go along with the public input. We also have a project advisory committee as well. So this is a mixture of members from the city. We have some business owners. We have the Naugatuck Museum, the YMCA. We have DOT. A number of people on this committee, and they're also going to help us guide the project. And we have a series of meetings scheduled with them as we move along also. Leslie mentioned stakeholder interviews, so we've got a handful of people that we're going to be interviewing to get their thoughts, and a website which I'll show you a little bit towards the end of this presentation. We'll show you the website, which is westmainstudy.com, and on that website, you can actually access that interactive survey map that I spoke about. Also, we'll be keeping up with social media as the project wears on. We have a Facebook page. There's a Twitter that the city and NBCOG have. We'll be updating that. So if you have your own personal social media pages, we encourage you to to forward the links and retweet posts, and just to get the word out. The more public input we have, the better our study will be in the end. So moving on, as I mentioned, we're in the kind of moving forward right now with data collection and analysis of existing conditions. So there'll be a number of things we're looking at here as we start to study a comprehensive field inventory. I mentioned the other studies that are going on in the area that we're reviewing, and we're going to be sure our recommendations are consistent with the findings of those studies. So we have some synergy there. We'll be doing a comprehensive review of the transit services in the area. This is one of the busiest transit routes in the city, with multiple bus routes along the corridor, and obviously the transit hub right at Exchange at the Green. And we'll be doing counts, so traffic counts, including vehicular and pedestrian counts at key intersections along the corridor. That will enable us to go ahead and run a traffic model where we can assess, determine where are the areas of congestion, where are vehicles getting delayed, where is there stacking and queuing of vehicles that we could potentially mitigate with recommendations from this study. And we're also combing through crash and accident records along the corridor. So this helps us determine where there's safety issues, where there are issues that we could potentially ameliorate with our recommendations from the study. And I know there have been some recent fatalities, pedestrian fatalities along the corridor. So, this is going to be a critical part of our analysis as well. Once we get a handle on what the issues are, we move forward and we look, we're going to be looking at potential changes and recommendations we can make along the corridor. So this could actually be reducing the number of lanes, make the road less wide, make it more friendly for pedestrians and bicyclists. We could be recommending geometric changes to intersections and adjoining streets to make things more safer. We're going to be developing a comprehensive pedestrian plan for better sidewalks and crosswalks and bus stops. A comprehensive bicycle plan. There's very little bicycle accommodations throughout the corridor today. Also a plan for making it safer to get into and out of the properties and parking lots and businesses along the route. There's a lot of curb cuts in this corridor, and some of them are fairly unsafe when you get a lot of them clustered together very closely. And then from there, we're going to be revisiting that traffic model I spoke about, so we can vet these improvements, vet the recommendations that we make, and ensure they can work with future traffic growth, test them out, and determine the the net, hopefully positive impact that the improvements will have to traffic flow on the corridor. And from there, we will be developing actual drawings, conceptual plans that will illustrate the improvements that we propose along the corridor. And these concept improvement plans will make it into our final report. Another thing we're going to be looking at with this scope is kind of a market analysis and economic analysis, because there is certainly some synergy between land use and transportation. And I'll let our subconsultant Francisco Gomes just give you a brief overview of what he's going to be looking at there.
Sure, thank you, Mark. The purpose of this market analysis is really to understand what's driving economic trips into the corridor. Why are people coming into the corridor to do business? Are they working there? Are they shopping there? And what is driving those trips? And then furthermore, what is the potential that the corridor has for development. And so we need to be mindful of what the future conditions might look like for the corridor so that we are designing a transportation system that will adequately serve the potential that the corridor has, not just what you see in the downtown today. So the technical aspects of our work involve some demographic analysis, taking a look at the population in the area, who lives in the area versus the businesses that are there, and then to do what we call a surplus leakage study, which is to figure out of the retail activity in the corridor, what does the corridor provide with respect to the local market demand versus what are people in the local area leaving to go somewhere else to find those goods and services. And that'll help us understand what potential that the study area has for future retail activity. And furthermore, in addition to technical analysis, we will be conducting some focus group meetings with key stakeholders to better understand the economic development issues and concerns in the area. That's it, Mark.
All right, great. Thanks, Francisco. So from there, we weave it all together. We're going to be developing a final report that will summarize all of our recommendations and our implementation strategies. So these recommendations are going to be kind of separated between short and long-term recommendations. So the shorter will be the quick hit, cheaper type recommendations, and then maybe a longer-term recommendation that might require funding because it's a larger ticket item. All of those concept layout plans that I described before will be an important part of this final report, and we'll summarize all of the recommendations, the multimodal recommendations for how we're going to improve this street, not just for vehicles, but cyclists, pedestrians, and transit users. We will provide some high-level cost estimates as part of the final report as well, and also identify potential funding sources. So really, the goal of this study, we don't want this to be a report that just ends up on the shelf at the end collecting dust. We want it to be able to be used to get some grant funds approved so that we can actually go out and build these recommendations. So our schedule, we're, as I mentioned, just getting started. We're in the existing conditions analysis phase right now. And at our first full public meeting, we're going to be moving into the alternatives analysis phase as we get into the spring. At that point, sometime in the spring, we will be having our next public involvement meeting where we'll be presenting our existing conditions findings and also kind of brainstorming recommendations. So hopefully everyone on today will be able to make that meeting as well. And then as we get into the summer, we'll be working on our final report, and we'll have our final public meeting hopefully just before the start of the summer. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Matt Skelly. He's going to give kind of a brief overview of the main challenge we see in this project, and kind of give you a kind of define what we mean when we talk about complete streets, and how we're going to look at that in this project. Matt.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, my section here could really all be summed up as context for our discussion, and really trying to get everybody in the frame of mind of what the information and type of participation we're looking for tonight is. So the thing that we like to talk about, and sorry if you hear a siren in the background as I'm talking here, I'm not sure how loud that is. The thing that we're talking about here is kind of a fundamental challenge that roadway designers face as we're trying to optimize the best use of our public right-of-way. Sometimes people conceptualize this space, may conceptualize this space as a street or a road, and we kind of try to look at those as having two different meanings. And a road, if you define it as a way to get people from one place to another as quickly as possible, highways do a really great job of that, but you don't really want a highway running through your downtown. And When we define a street, we look at that as kind of a platform for people to build wealth, live their lives, all those things that your downtowns were typically used for when a place like Waterbury was developed. So we're kind of trying to look back at that and figure out the ways to make all of this space comfortable for everyone who wants to use it. And so that may be that it's certainly not meant to exclude drivers in any way. Drivers are certainly important in this equation, but a lot of the times we find that pedestrians, bicyclists, transit riders, people who are differently abled are sometimes left out of these equations a little bit. And so that's kind of, we want to bring all that to the forefront during our discussion. If you want to go to the next slide, we can talk a little bit about complete streets. We definitely want to use the concept of complete streets as a philosophy that we lean on in our design. It really does mean that the streets are for everyone, and that includes everybody that I mentioned, age and ability. Sometimes you hear people say that we want the streets to be designed for everybody from 8 to 80 to be able to use comfortably. And this is also a really important transit corridor. We're going to touch on that a lot tonight. I'm sure we'll hear from folks who are going to be talking about that. That's another really big component to this project. You can go ahead to the next slide. So this is an example of a different project we worked on. This one happens to be in West Hartford. So this is an example of a road that has 4 lanes running through it, undivided, 2 in each direction. You can see on the right here is a little plaza. There's a coffee shop in there. Over the course of our project that we worked on here, a residential building was built on the left side of the road, and we looked at what could potentially happen here. And so if you want to go ahead forward, you can see that what we found is that the 4-lane section doesn't provided excess capacity for vehicles than what was required here. We found that that a 2-lane section with a 2-way center left turn lane, which you can see colored in red in that image, would handle the traffic needs just as well, and would allow us to have space for bike lanes in each direction. And you can see how the streetscape is also improved here with some street trees, better pedestrian scale lighting, and better crosswalks as well. There's a lot of other facets, but those are some just to get your minding gear for what potentially could be. So if you want to go to the next slide, essentially we're going to frame our discussion tonight. What we'd like to do is ask everybody who's joined us to talk about what the strengths and weaknesses of this corridor are. And I think it's easy to kind of look at what the weaknesses are and what the complaints are, and there's traffic jams and crashes and all that stuff. We certainly know that, and we want to hear about it, but it's also really important for us to hear what you think this corridor is doing well, and where are your favorite areas? What are good experiences that you've had along this corridor? And it could be anywhere along it that you like about it. This is a cool downtown area, and we want to hear about those things too, not just the weaknesses. But we're gonna go through and talk about all the different sections here quickly, some of the characteristics, and then we'll get into the discussion. Mark, you want to start?
Okay.
With the next one?
Thanks, Matt. So our first section of the corridor, as I described before in the project limits, we're starting over at Route 8, and as it's kind of a gateway into the city, into the downtown area. And as you head east, I'm going to bring up Street View here for a minute and take a look at how this road looks as you come in off of Route 8. So you can see, it's a 4-lane road. It's a very suburban feel to this road, very auto-centric, no shoulders, no bike facilities. You get a lot of curb cuts here. This is the intersection actually where Jackson, this is not up to date, but this is where Jackson Street tied in. So this is something we're going to be looking at, and how this intersection is operating, and how it's interacting with some of these other commercial driveways that are in the area. Lots of cars here. This is a bit of a congested area, a lot of curb cuts. As I mentioned, a busy intersection here, commercialized area. So, this area we think needs some work, and we're going to be giving it a close look, and also looking at, how we can make this more multimodal, more friendly for bicyclists and pedestrians. And also, there's some transit stops in this area that we think some of these bus stop areas can be improved where people are waiting for the bus. As we head further down the corridor to the east here, you have a railroad overpass here. This is rather unsightly in the existing condition, but this is actually slated for replacement. It's under design by the state. So we're hoping maybe some gateway type improvements could be completed here in conjunction with that project. But as you head further east, and I'll let Matt talk about this section, you can see it really starts to change character from what I just described, of that commercialized suburban feel.
Sure, and so we tried to break these up into different character sections, and as Mark mentioned, the first one furthest west is a more suburban feel. Now we get into the somewhat more urban feel. You still have a very large intersection with Sperry Street that you can see on the left side of that image, where tough for crossing. But as you get into this portion of the corridor, you really start to see those kind of urban bones with the 3- and 4-story buildings on either side of the street. This is narrowing down to 1 lane of traffic for a stretch here. You have the on-street parking, and the character you can feel has very much changed as we get into this section. And as you keep heading east here, this is you see there's a mid-block crossing that we just went by. That's we're standing right on top of it here. This is a key aspect. We know that this is a trouble area for crashes, pedestrian crashes especially, and certainly some opportunity for maybe potential development around in this area as well. And as we keep heading east, we'll get to the intersection of Willow and Meadow Street, where really you're starting to have like a pretty downtown feel here. Unfortunately, I'll turn it back over to Mark to talk about that intersection. It's not the most friendly of intersections. Mark, you want to jump in?
Yeah, thanks. Geez. Now this intersection is really a mess. I mean, it's it's an offset approaches here on the north and the south. You have turn restrictions on a couple of the legs. A diagonal pedestrian crossing down the middle of it, and then you got a 7-Eleven here on the corner that literally has a driveway going into the middle of the intersection. So it's, if you're in traffic engineering 101 class, there's a lot of things here that you're told never to do that have happened for whatever reason at this intersection over the years. So it's a busy intersection, and there's a lot going on. There's definitely documented safety concerns, safety issues, and crash patterns here. So this is an intersection we're going to be definitely focusing on as part of the study. And as you head, further east here into this next section of road, we've gone from the commercial strip suburban feel to a little bit better of a condition where it's more of a typical urban environment in the last segment. But then you get back here as we approach the green, and here we're back again to a road that is 6 lanes wide. There's a lot of pavement here. It looks like a runway. And we're back to a very, undesirable condition where we have excess pavement width. This is very unfriendly for a pedestrian, to try to cross all this pavement in one swoop. The parking is at a premium here as well. There's not a lot of on-street parking, and again, no bike facilities, very little in the way of transit accommodations. So this, Matt was talking earlier about a road diet. This could be a prime example of a situation where we could implement a road diet and maybe neck down the vehicular travel lanes and give some more emphasis on maybe bike lanes, some more parking, maybe some bus pull-offs for the transit. There's a lot of different things, cool things we could do, I think, to this section of the roadway. And we'll be looking at those when we get into our alternatives analysis portion of the project. And then you head towards the green here, and I'll turn it back to Matt just to mention a few of the things we noticed right off the bat with the traffic flow in this area.
Sure, yeah. This is, I'm sure, as familiar as everyone is here with the green. You all know about the challenges and some of the cool things about it as well. The great statue that we see in front of us in this image here. I think it's a unique situation where there's the only it's almost like a little bit of has a roundabout feel to it. But there's no way for people to get over to it and see it. And it's certainly not the most straightforward and intuitive approach for somebody maybe who's from out of town or doesn't know what to expect coming in here for a traffic pattern. As you move further east into the green, you have the traffic flow on two-way traffic flow on both the north and south sides of the green. But it's an awesome community gathering place, recently refurbished and looking in really great shape. But the traffic flow around it maybe leaves something to be desired. We know also as you get all the way to the eastern side of the green, you have a lot of turning restrictions and again a relatively significant crash history. Also, certainly a lot of transit activity in this area, so it's critical to make sure that the needs of transit are being met. As the pulse point for the transit service is just off-screen east of where we are, and in this area as well at times. Anything else I missed there, Mark?
No, I think, like you said, circulation, wayfinding is definitely going to be critical here. And, with the pedestrian activity, I think there's some areas along the green here that, you're kind of really missing an important segment here between the statue over Leavenworth Street, where there's really no ability for a pedestrian to cross. So it's pretty much got it all here: transit, pedestrian, traffic circulation. I expect we're probably going to have a lot of interesting and ideas that come out of our workshops for the green here.
Hey, Mark.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
There's a question in the chat box. Looks like Art wants to know I think you described it. What's a curb cut? Can you describe what a curb cut is? I think you were talking about it in the early section.
Oh, absolutely. So, as I move back over here towards the 7-Eleven, for instance, so a curb cut, I really just mean a driveway, an access point where traffic is coming into and out of a business. So when you have, a curb cut or a driveway, coming into an intersection here, this is a dangerous situation. Or you have several curb cuts, several driveways in a row. You have a lot of cars turning in and out in a very short segment of roadway. That typically causes a safety concern. It causes an increase in crash patterns. So the location of these driveway curb cuts and the frequency and prevalence of them is something we're going to be looking at. It's called access management. It's going to be an important part of this study. So I'm going to go back here to the PowerPoint, and these are the 4 street sections that Matt and I just described that we'll be looking at in more detail. But you've heard us talking for about a half hour now, so I think we really want to get to the point in the program this evening where we can hear your thoughts and hear your ideas for what you think are the issues that we should be looking at on the corridor. And I'm going to turn it back to Matt here, who's going to kind of give you the ground rules for our discussion.
Thanks. So yeah, this essentially what we're hoping to do is move through the next hour plus talking a little bit about each of those 4 sections. And we want to go through it basically the way Mark and I just did, talking about the strengths and weaknesses as you all experience them in your everyday use of the corridor. So some ground rules here. It's really important for everybody to be respectful, I think, is kind of a summary of all these different ground rules. Speak your own truth, listen to others with full attention, share the floor. We want to hear from everybody. Oh, I gotta pull this back up here. Did you lose me? Can you still hear me?
Yeah. Still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Lost your video.
I'm not seeing your screen anymore.
Lost your video.
Oh, okay.
Well,
There we go. Better?
Better.
Not sure what happened there. Yeah, assume the community is seeking honest input from each other, right? So there's going to be different points of view in this conversation, and we're very happy to hear from everybody. 2 to 3 minutes per speaker would be great to make sure everybody gets a chance. We do have a fairly decent sized group on the line tonight. The other things to just more mechanically here. So if you want to speak, you should see a raise hand button on the panel on the left side of your GoToWebinar window. The little hand in the second yellow box. That one, if you hit that button, we will see that you want to speak. We'll give you the ability to unmute yourself, and you'll be able to ask your question, make your observations, and we'll be able to respond. You can also, if you'd prefer not to speak, you feel free to just type a question into that chat. That's where we got Art's question earlier. He utilized that function. I can see there's another one that we'll get to in just 1 second that's already come in. We'll keep an eye on that throughout. But we definitely want to hear from you, hear your voices out here tonight. And what we're going to do when you guys have questions or comments, we're going to be marking them down as strengths or weaknesses, things to address, and we have a note-keeping system that we'll be able to share with you guys as we wrap up the evening.
Hey, Matt, can everyone still see my screen, or did you lose it?
Here, hold on. I'll put you back.
Okay. I think we may have lost my.
Yeah, I had a copy of the presentation open, so I was reading it offline.
Okay. There we go. I'm not sure how that happened. Okay. So we'll move into the next slide, Matt, and these are some of the discussion points that I think we want people to think about here as we move into the input. So
so we're ready to hear from you guys. If you want to go ahead and raise your hands, we'll start to unmute you, but we can start with some of these questions that have come in the chat or in the questions. I'll read out the first one here from Annabella. Will you be taking lighting into consideration with the traffic flow improvements? So question about lighting. You want to take that one, Mark?
Sure. So I'm not sure if the question's more geared towards street illumination, but that is something we typically would look at if there's any dark areas in the road that could pose a pedestrian safety concern. We'd certainly note those as recommendations. But if you are referring to like traffic signals. Certainly, that will be also looked at as part of our analysis. We're going to be looking at what traffic signals may need to be upgraded. There is another traffic signal upgrade project going on, a CMAC project concurrently with this one that we're going to be able to hopefully tap into. They are replacing a few of the signals along the corridor, so we'll be able to have some input into the recommendations and the designs of those signals as part of that study. And some of the traffic signals as well get into you can do combination arms with street lighting illumination as well, and kind of get a 2-for-1 deal there. So
she did clarify
okay.
about the illumination, and yeah, that was, if you saw on the example of the road diet, those are some of the streetscape recommendations that we can make. So yeah, we've got that in our notes as a general comment, that the street lighting improvements are important. Next, oh, sorry, did I interrupt somebody?
No, that was me.
The next question that came in from Robert, I want to know, what are they going to do with all the homeless people on the corner of West Main Street and Thomason Ave? And what will they do about parking areas? Maybe put a commuter's lot near the corner of Kalamazoo and West Main Street near Naugatuck Community College. So a few different questions there. I would say the commuter lot, that's maybe a piece of low-hanging fruit. That's something that we can include as a potential recommendation. That's not something, Mark, we haven't looked at that as a potential yet, have we?
No. So where was the commuter lot suggested? Which intersection?
Near the corner of Kalamazoo and West Main near Naugatuck Community College.
Kalamazoo. Okay.
So we can note that and
yep.
definitely look at that as a potential option. As far as a question about people experiencing homelessness, that's certainly, this is not to say that that's something that we would ever want to ignore. I think generally, for the most part, we're trying to primarily focus on the public right of way and how best to design it. I think it's not that I would say that is at least somewhat outside of the scope of what we're going to look at in this study. But as far as other parking areas, Mark, is that something that we want to touch on? Any kind of a response to any other parking areas that we're looking at?
Well, I know the city is in the process of converting this area up here, this grass area, to some additional surface parking, which will help in the green area. But I think the focus of our study, we're going to be really looking at the on-street parking, and it's going to be a big thing. I kind of mentioned a few of the areas where in the vicinity of these churches here, by Central Avenue, there's some parking that's lacking. The church, traffic will spill onto West Main Street. I know during services, there's some lack of on-street parking near the La Casuela restaurant here on the northwest corner of West Main and Willow. So, parking always a big issue in an urban area. So that will be a focus. But as far as off-street lots, I think as we get into future public meetings, when we're talking about recommendations, and we've got, we're kind of hatching out solutions. That will be a good time where we can look at maybe if there's some potential parcels, or maybe some potential parcels where you could share parking between existing parking lots. Between adjacent developments that could share parking, or developments that maybe they have a parking need in the day but they don't have it at night, or vice versa, and you can get into a shared parking agreement. Those are the types of things and recommendations that this study will look at. So definitely we'll be looking at that as we move forward.
And we'll keep taking the questions. There's a few more that have come in, but we're definitely hoping to get people raising their hands to jump into the conversation. So please do that as soon as you're ready. We'll be happy to take those comments first. Well, speaking of which, it looks
I
like
see I see a hand raised, Matt.
Yeah, I saw Annabella's hand has just gone up here. Let's see if it looks like you can unmute yourself now, Annabella.
Oh, fantastic. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
We can.
Awesome. I thought I'd be the first to take the plunge here and say hi to all of you. So,
Thanks.
hi. Thank you so much for doing this. I think you guys have really identified a lot of key areas that need some massaging to allow for a much more comfortable ride, if you will, through the area. The first area that I wanted to kind of just go to, and it's really more just for my own, I guess, daily drive, is if we go back over to the section where Thomaston Avenue is and the new Jackson Street cut there.
Sure.
One thing that I notice when I'm driving, away from the river towards the Thomaston intersection, there is, right there at that car wash, there's a lot of left turns just before the light, and that often causes a lot of congestion with people trying to go around that individual who's taken a left before the light. So that's something that you'll probably see in your studies with the traffic and counts. The other item that may or may not know is right there on the right-hand side, when it rains, that usually floods up a lot. And so that might be an area that needs to be looked into to kind of develop and eliminate that, because oftentimes it kind of turns into a one lane because no one really wants to drive through the water.
Where is that, Annabelle? Is it further down or right in this area?
No, right there where you see the trees and that fence.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, so just before the Monroe muffler, that usually floods up a lot. So there's some type of water issues there, drainage that's not been addressed, and only those who ride through that would ever know that.
Great.
Yeah, that's great. We've got that in the notes. Thank you. What else?
Trying to think what's up. Let me see. So driving through, I mean, I think you really kind of hit it, as far as, coming into that downtown area, some of the wide streets, people don't really know where to kind of cross at that point. And then that major engineering 101, what not to do example, I think was key. Not sure what is currently planned for the 7-Eleven. I did see that the sign came down, so not sure if that's up for sale or what. But it kind of seems like that might be a spot that someone else might be coming into, or who knows, maybe parking.
Okay.
Well, that would be good if we have the opportunity, there to maybe make some changes if that property is changing hands. Could be good timing.
Yeah. I mean, and aside from that, I think you really nailed it as far as, you kind of go into this, once you pass that intersection, it sort of becomes this potential roadway race to the lovely statue in the center of the roundabout.
Right.
Yeah, and I think really just the confusion and whatnot right there. I mean, you guys really, nailed that, I think there. So I think that's really it for the time being, as far as, some of the major things that I've sort of experienced and see.
And so I'm gathering from your comments that you're a commuter to downtown about? Is that how you usually use the corridor?
Yeah, so typically I'm coming in from, the upper West Main, and I take a left onto that Thomaston Road to go home. I do work in downtown. I actually work for Main Street Waterbury. So this particular area is definitely one that we have been wanting to, bring some additional light, if you will, and just really some vibrancy and attention to. So yeah, but right now, obviously, it's like I'm working from home. Like many of you.
Definitely a familiar feeling. So that's great. Anything else before we take some other questions?
No, I think that's it for right now. Definitely looking forward to the next one that you guys do. And, certainly I know that the lighting was a concern that some of the business owners had brought up to us at Main Street Waterbury, and really the crosswalk piece of it. And this is really going back down to where you have like Zeus's tattoo, that area right after the railroad underpass. There's not a lot of lighting in there, and so that was an area that we definitely wanted to be able to see some.
Great.
Right.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Of course, and feel free to chime back in if you want. We'll put you back on mute now, and if you have more comments, just raise your hand again. That does bring up one, before we jump into some more questions, that does bring up another item that I wanted to mention. You guys are all some perfect people to recommend to us, folks that we might be able, who maybe can't make it tonight, who would be good stakeholder interviews for us to reach out to. So if you have that ideas for that, feel free to you can type it in as a question and let us know. So I'll go to the next question here. This is from Laura. I appreciate this is about transportation, but I'm curious how you engage businesses and the facades of businesses. Certain storefronts, et cetera, can impact the quality of activity in that area. I'll guess turn that over to Mark. That's a tough one. Or Leslie, I don't know, is that something that you would envision this study commenting on?
I appreciate the comment because I think that as a planner, I recognize, and I think we all recognize that, a transportation study isn't just about transportation, it's about quality of life. And that means having, strong businesses in that area, and the way they look. And I don't know if we'll directly discuss that in the study, but I know that with transportation improvements oftentimes comes improvements to businesses because there's an investment that's happening. So I would say even maybe for future, we can engage more businesses maybe in the stakeholder interviews, but I guess we would have to talk about like then how to exactly go about doing that. But maybe just for this study, it's probably more about kind of the transportation issues.
Yeah, great. Okay. So the next question that came in here, this is, well, I guess I should read, there is a second part to that Laura added. Some deteriorated businesses along this way can make individuals want to avoid walking or biking along this corridor. So point taken on that. And I think that Leslie's response addresses that. Next question from Maybeth. In the area of WM West Main where Starbucks is, it is very difficult to pull out and make a left of Starbucks and TD Bank. Is that an area you have surveyed and seen similar issues? So I believe that's on the, I believe we're looking at the western end of the site here. And we certainly have heard similar issues to that. Mark, you want to summarize what we've heard kind of in our early advisory committee meetings about this area?
Yeah, so the comments, just to clarify, the Starbucks, let me just pull this up. And okay, so which portion of the road was it?
Mark, this is Christian.
Yep,
Starbucks is
yep.
actually out further west than Route 8. It's a little beyond the
It's
study
beyond
area. That's right.
beyond the
Oh, it's on
study
the other
area. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so that's a little, our study limits kind of end right here at the overpass on Route 8. So we're kind of starting right at this point. But I'm sure there's many issues maybe for a future study that or could make up a future study is the westerly part of the corridor.
So yeah, we'll move on to the next one. Perhaps we'll get a chance to talk about where I was trying to lead us as with another comment later. Next comment that we got in here was from Mark DiPietro. Great to hear about your plans for more pedestrian traffic. Are you considering improved parking for the corridor? So that's another parking comment. I'm not sure that there's another answer, but certainly we will track that as another question about more parking. I guess one thing I could add is that we did hear from from folks at the city that there is a new parking area expected to come online relatively soon near the green up on Prospect Street, I believe.
That's what I was mentioning before, Matt. It's right up in this Prospect and Linden in this area here.
So there is some coming online. I would say that, yeah, we're not necessarily like we're really trying to focus primarily on kind of what's happening on the roads, but that that's a piece there.
Hey, Matt,
Yeah.
looks like just for a hand raised, I think they already addressed his comment, but Robert Resident looks like he has his hand up, so I don't know if he wants to comment and unmute.
Got a second question.
Oh, sorry, who is that?
He's all set to talk. You're unmuted, Robert.
Yeah, I think his hand has been up since he called in. I'll put his hand down, and if he raises it again,
he's got a further question down the list.
Yeah, he's been jumping in there. But I do see Robert Nerney has his hand up here. So looks like you're unmuted. You can jump in, Robert.
Yes, hello everyone. Great job.
Thanks.
A few comments. I mean, I think as you started off, you noted that it's certainly an eclectic mix of development and land use pattern along West Main Street, focusing in on the first area from Route 8 to the trestle. I think one of the first things that come to my mind is the wide open number of curb cuts, many of which are very wide, probably so than necessary. Yeah, there you go. And you can see there's absolutely no greenery or separation. The sidewalks are in poor condition. There's very little reveal between the roadway and the sidewalk. On the left-hand side, you can see that there's no snow shoulder of any sort. So pedestrian walking along there is really right on top of the travel lane. Also, they're not ADA compliant. You can see a light post in the middle of the sidewalk. Looks a little further down on the left. There's looks like a sign post. So I think it's important to be certainly conscientious of ADA requirements. Moving toward the trestle, I'm happy to hear that the state is looking at a replacement of that structure, because that really is the kind of the great wall that separates the approach to downtown from areas to the west. And in many places, in fact, Mark, I think I had sent you some some photographs of different places around the country where they can
Right.
take a structure like that and try to beautify it in a way. Even though you can see the wing walls, very unattractive. Looks like they've whitewashed over graffiti. Some communities try to enhance that through murals or other ways just to make it look a little more inviting. As you move east to the east toward the downtown, one of the things that I notice as you go, well, first of all, in this area, you do see parking on both sides. It would strike me that this is an area that certainly would be eligible for traffic calming, which might result in actually a decrease of the roadway width. Maybe the introduction of a bike lane. I understand that on-site parking is very important to the merchants, but maybe that should be looked at other alternatives that might be able to look at. In terms of maybe I think it would be great to be able to get some landscaping and bicycle transportation, at least on one side of the road. Maybe split the difference between on-site parking and other means of transportation, landscaping, so forth. The issue of lighting was brought up. I think not only should we be looking at streets that are well illuminated, but I think decorative lighting in conjunction with landscaping, sort of try to introduce a tree canopy in areas where it might be wide enough to accommodate that would be sort of a unifying factor. And then as you move further to the east, as you kind of get into the downtown, you'll notice a lot of concrete islands in the road. Just scroll ahead, and as you approach the green, you'll see islands and striped areas, pavement that's been striped. There might be opportunities to kind of, again, soften that, make it more attractive, more inviting. This area, certainly on the outer edges of the sidewalk, is actually very, very beautiful. But you've got this excessively wide right-of-way with these concrete islands that I think could be improved upon. And then finally, if you look at the crosswalks, good number of them are worn. They require continuous maintenance. I know in projects I've been involved in, we have done asphalt crosswalk stamping, which is very decorative. It can be made to look like red brick. It's a polyplastic material that's actually infused right into the asphalt, and you can put a grid to create the appearance of actual brick. And I think it lasts quite a while, but it also calls out the crosswalks in a way that they're very noticeable to the to vehicles, people driving. So those are just a few ideas. I guess I'll stop at this point. You did note the city looking at the possibility of additional parking. That's correct. That's Prospect Street. The plan is to see if we can't get an additional 120 parking spaces that would help alleviate traffic on the west side of the green and also the Yukon area.
That's great. Thanks, Bob.
Okay, I don't see any other hands raised at the moment, so we can jump back into some of the questions that we've received. From the next one that came in was from Cyril May, which I think, Leslie, you said that's CJ, right? Will the greenway extending from the Tiger Grant area to the south, eventually cross West Main Street? If so, do we know where it would cross, and can you take that into account in your suggestions? Mark, do you have an answer on that one?
So say that again. The Greenway, was this on Meadow Street? Is that what?
Yeah, I think he's talking about extending from the Tiger grant.
Yep. So there are plans to extend bike lanes and streetscape up Meadow Street towards our study area. So that was one of the things I was mentioning. You know, this is a great opportunity to connect all those nice improvements that have been made on Freight Street up Meadow, and then, you know, carry them forward on West Main Street as we head in towards the green. So all these projects, and then, you know, furthermore extending, you know, down East Main Street with that project. So yeah, all these projects kind of tying and weaving in together here. So this is good timing for this study.
Great. All right. Looks like we have a couple other hands that have come up here. Robert had his hand raised before, and it looks like, Robert, resident, you still haven't entered your PIN yet. I don't know. I haven't seen if you're having technical difficulties. That's another thing you could enter into the chat. But
you entered it into the telephone, just so he's
right.
clear.
You're gonna need to. You should have been sent a PIN. Do we have a way to resend that, Jim? If you didn't get it, I'm not sure. I don't see an option to do that myself, but we're definitely happy to get you into the mix here if we can figure out how to get you unmuted. You do need to hopefully, it says, I think we're sending you your, what's that?
Pound 34655 pound.
So if you enter that into your phone, Robert, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Sure, repeat that, Jim, for him.
Sure, it's the pound symbol, 34655 pound symbol.
And we can.
That attendee is self-muted, and okay, so let's see. No. I muted him. Now I unmuted him.
Yeah, I think he's still self-muted.
Self-muted, it says.
Yeah. Well, I don't see any reason why Robert can't jump in at some point. He can definitely go ahead.
Matt, I can make him a presenter, and then he can talk, and then we can change it.
Okay.
All right, if you want to try that. So we'll lose the screen here for a second. I don't see him on the.
Well, he's unmuted. Go ahead and talk.
You're unmuted, Robert.
I can hear you. Could be. See, it's some audio.
Oh, he's in the other category. So perhaps that was an errant hand raise. I think we can keep moving here, and if we find a way, Jim will work on connecting with Robert to get him to join into the conversation. I saw Judy Mancini had her hand raised briefly. It's down now. So Judy, if you want to chime in, you can put your hand back up and we'll unmute you. We can maybe pick up a couple more questions here. Okay. Oh, Judy does have her hand. All right, you're unmuted, Judy, if you want to jump in.
Hi, everyone. Thanks. I just wanted to address CJ's question about the Greenway potentially coming over to West Main. That is right now in very preliminary discussions. There hasn't been any plans put in place yet for the second phase of the Greenway, although that has been considered to be a part of it, but nothing is yet confirmed for that section of the Greenway to get to West Main. I just wanted to clarify that.
Perfect.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Judy. All right, we have a couple questions from TD here. The first one is seconding the left turn issue going east on West Main Street just before Thomaston Avenue. So that's another one we can track. So a left turn heading east just before Thomaston Avenue. So I'm not sure if that's heading up. Yeah, I think it's heading up that little.
This is what Annabelle was talking about here. So
yeah.
The left turn movement here, and you've got some, vehicles that will stop and maybe make a left turn into the shell, and it causes a backup. So they're blocking through vehicles.
We'll second that comment. And then another question, what about the low bridge past the KFC, the left turn on Sperry Street heading east? It causes congestion under the bridge. So, we've touched on the low bridge a couple times. I think we're talking about right here in this area. Certainly also, a challenge that I think TD is bringing up here is with sight distance is another issue. That comes into play here and causing the backup under the bridge. Anything else to add there, Mark?
No, I totally agree. Just taking a look at this from the start, this was always a concern. This intersection coming in at a skewed angle, so the sight line's very poor. Looking off to the right, you're looking over your shoulder and through a trestle. And then you get the left turns waiting under the overpass here. It's always a concern when you have an overpass and you have the shadowing effect, and a car can come under and it's all of a sudden dark, and then you can't see what's coming back into the light. You can't see what's going on as well. So we do see some crash patterns that have occurred at this intersection with vehicles, and then you see here's a pedestrian walking across this wide open expanse of pavement, and there's no crosswalk. So this is adding to our list of critical intersections here in the study that we'll need to focus on.
Great. And I saw also Laura, well, your comment is noted, kind of same thing about that bridge with trucks getting stuck under it. Certainly also a concern there. So we did get a question that came in from the Robert person who signed up as Robert resident. I guess I can read it off. I'm concerned that they have a drug rehab center on the corner of Thomaston Ave and West Main Street, and I believe that's where a lot of panhandlers are coming from. So that's and wondering about how to correct that. That's another land use issue. I would say that's somewhat outside of the scope of this study, but definitely noted. We'll have that comment noted. Still not seeing any other hands raised, but another question came in from Benjamin. The Waterbury Baptist Ministries has a very popular food pantry that lines up on the sidewalk, and there's not enough sidewalk space for folks waiting. The churches would be good to speak to. So that's a great suggestion, Benjamin. We do have some of the churches on our list as good people for stakeholder interviews, and I'm trying to where exactly, where exactly that line would be, Mark?
I'm not sure exactly which road he's referring to, but Waterbury Baptist Ministries is here. There's First Congregational Church, St. John's is here, Basilica, several churches in this area, very clustered together. And I know we heard in our project advisory committee meeting that this area was should be a focus, and we should reach out to the churches which we have and will be in our stakeholder interviews. But I know parking and pull-offs are a concern here. There's a wide road, but really not a lot of on-street parking, and the off-street parking at the churches is not, there's not a ton in some of these parking lots. So they do spill over onto the roads. So definitely noted that concern.
Certainly, lines on the sidewalk, perhaps there's a, we can include that as the, maybe a potential use for wider sidewalks there. Something we can talk about.
Right.
Mark chimed back in to say he's the owner of Boru's Bar and Grill at 357 West Main Street. Could be a good stakeholder interview candidate. So thank you, Mark, for letting us know. Let's see. Any other hands still? I'm not seeing any other hands coming up yet. We do have a couple more questions here. So TD chimed in again to say, additionally, crossing the road between Thomaston to nearly downtown past Willow Street can be dangerous. Sidewalks are sparse and pedestrian crossing is rarely respected. So, that is definitely something that we've noted here, is that the pedestrian crossings are kind of few and far between. There is one that you might consider to be a mid-block crossing, but I think TD's comment is a good one here, that that we need to create a better atmosphere for people crossing the street to be respected when they do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty telling if you look at this aerial, Matt. There's in Thomaston, you've got a crosswalk on the west leg of the intersection, and then as you proceed east, there's nothing through this whole segment under the bridge through Sperry Street, all the way here till you get towards the Big Apple Motel, where we have that mid-block crossing. So that's a long stretch without any pedestrian crossing capability.
It looks like we may have Robert. Are you able to? Can we hear you now? You want to try to? Looks like you're unmuted. I do see you've got your hand back up, so I would say feel free to test it out, and if you can jump in anytime, feel free to do that. I see your hand going up and down, but I don't hear you. We'd love to get some more voices in the conversation here. However, there are still a couple more comments to read through here. So Raymond has said, certainly, so thank you for your time and effort. It's certainly going to be challenging given the variety of situations. Less curb cuts is better from Raymond, so that's good for us to note. Might consider allowing left turns up Willow to eliminate the workaround to Willow up Sperry Street in the west. So, Mark, you can maybe point out that route that he's talking about. So we know the left turns heading east on West Main Street towards Willow are prohibited. So I think what Raymond's talking about is a cut through up Sperry Street and then over Grove to get to Willow. So that's a great great insight there. That perhaps there's some excessive residential cut through going on in that area.
Yeah, and Matt, we were aware of that, and we actually I didn't mention earlier, but we did include these intersections to the north,
right,
Grove and Johnson Street, in our study area, with the anticipation that, depending on what we propose to do at Willow and Meadow Street with these turn restrictions and potential rerouting of traffic, that we would need to look at those. So that's another good comment. Thank you.
All right, and then Carl Rosa chimed in to say there's also a drainage issue under the bridge when it rains and snow melts. So that's another item for us to note. We have also heard that there are at times issues with puddles freezing under the bridge. So that's a great thing to note as a potential improvement.
You can actually see it in the street view. I mean, there's some puddling going on even when this image was taken, and it doesn't even look like it was a very wet day. So definitely we'll note that as well.
And we had one more question from Annabella. Any plans for Judd Street in connecting with this project and or the Tiger Freight Street project? Mark, do you have, I'm not sure if you have an answer on that.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's
So I think the question's related to Judd Street here and whether this will be connected. You can see this, this is something actually, that's a good comment, because we had not, that's not something we had not heard yet. So definitely something we can look at as part of this. It's bordering maybe a bit out of the scope, but certainly as far as making a recommendation, I think it's something we can vet in the alternatives process.
Hi guys, it's Judy Mancini again. I just wanted to address the question related to Tiger and Freight Street. The Tiger project has been completed, so any work related to Tiger has been completed. Substantial completion, final completion was achieved in December of last year. So there's no other Tiger work that's going on. That project is completed.
Yeah, okay. I wasn't sure if the question was more related if this project would then maybe pick up the concerns on Judd Street. But,
thank you.
Okay. Yep. Thanks.
Thanks. So that is all of the questions that we have in the queue for right now. The one thing, looking at our notes, what we've had, what we've been talking about so far, we've really been focused primarily, I think, from Meadow Street west. We really haven't talked too much about, yeah, thanks for sharing that, Mark. Haven't talked too much about Meadow Street towards the green, and especially the green area itself. And if we had any perspectives on things you like about the green, things that you think could be improved, especially from a roadway use perspective, whether it be about transit, biking, crossing the street when you're driving, any of those things, we would love to hear about. And I can, I'll just say, in my opinion anyway, I think that's one of the cool things about this project and this study, is that we have the ability to kind of make some really impactful changes in that area. So this is a great time for folks to speak on that if anyone does have an opinion. Mark, maybe you can walk us through maybe your thoughts about the traffic characteristics down there briefly while we see if any hands come up.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think I mentioned I hit on this a little bit before, and some of the things we heard about in the the PAC meeting, our advisory committee. We've held our first meeting with them, and some of the things that came up was really this intersection with the I guess you can call it a roundabout around the monument, and if you're sleeping or you miss the turn, to come over here and go up Park Place, you've kind of then got to go all the way around and circle around. But you get to this intersection of North, South, East, and West Main Street, and you see here that we've got a similar situation to Willow and Meadow, and you've got a left turn restriction. In fact, you've got left turn restrictions on all legs to this intersection. So it really is not good for circulation in this area to have all these turn restrictions. In talking to the mayor, that was one item that he mentioned that would be something good to look at in this study as well. So that is one area we're going to be looking at, the circulation, the turn restrictions at this intersection. Also signage, wayfinding signage coming around the green is something we noticed. You know, not a lot of good directional signage in this area, and maybe we develop a sort of a branding of signage that we can create for this corridor. You know, there's no real, you know, some cities kind of have a brand of directional or tourism signage throughout the downtown area, and there's not a lot of consistency with that here. So, you know, that could be another potential recommendation that might come out of this study as well. And, you know, I think I mentioned, you know, with the Naugatuck Museum here, the YMCA and the churches, you know, we're going to be looking at the circulation and the pedestrian crossing issues. Really no, I mentioned before, there's no pedestrian crossing at all in this area. You have this really nice green with, you know, that's, you know, really accommodating and kind of a pleasant place to be for a pedestrian with the walkways and the benches and the monument, but you're kind of landlocked when you get down to this area. So lots to look at here, and you know, lest we forget the buses. You know, this is the point where all the transit, numerous routes come together. And we didn't talk a lot about transit yet tonight, but you know, I think that's going to be important as well, particularly at, you know, where there's bus signs and bus stops. We really don't have any amenities whatsoever as you get beyond the green for you know, benches, shelters, that sort of thing. So that's going to be another item we focus on.
Mark, I'll jump in. There's been a couple comments, questions that have come in here from first one from Benjamin for the green area. The bus to New Haven that picks up by St. John, so that's a regional bus, / the old Naugatuck, really needs better accommodations. The bus is regularly late by over half an hour, so especially during the winter, it can be tough there. A public restroom would be ideal, though perhaps outside the scope of this. So that's a great comment to note. The regional bus accommodations, that's, you know, it can be sometimes, you know, just as important, if not more so than the local bus routes. So we'll definitely log that as something to look out for. Another comment that came in is about bus turning restrictions. So that just mentioning that those left turn restrictions over on the eastern side of the green do not apply to buses. So that's a good note for us to keep in mind. And one more comment in here from Robert, resident, signed in as Robert Resident. It's a great project. We should probably include benches for people to sit down for the bus stop. And there's that those would give people a more comfortable feeling walking, to have give people a place to sit. Also, question about police. I think, is there a possibility to have more patrol or on a bike patrol in that area? So something, you know, certainly we hope that, we like to say that, you know, good design doesn't need as much enforcement, and we would love to have this be left in a place where there isn't a ton of police enforcement needed for all this stuff. I do see Judy has her hand raised. I'll unmute you, Judy. I don't know if you wanted to chime in here.
No, sorry, that was
Just
mistake.
checking.
Sorry.
Okay. And we did get one other comment from Reggie that has come in. Question: what is planned for the bridge on West Main and Route 8, the Samuel K. Beeman Bridge? Maybe a relation to Reggie, I'm guessing. Has the same last name. We would like to paint a mural and increase its lighting. So
this is the bridge over by Route 8.
That's what I'm guessing.
Mhm. So
So
there's a bridge over the river here, and then the Route 8 overpass. I know that the you know, we spoke with the DOT project manager, Jonathan Dean, had mentioned that this area is being looked at as part of the DOT's mixed master study, and they have proposed some improvements in this area. So we are talking with them on those some of those issues. And you know, the DOT, as I mentioned earlier, is an active partner in this project and is participating in our advisory committee meeting. So that's something we can, you know, we can take that down as a note and pass it along to the DOT.
great. Yeah, Annabella chimed in to say that's a great idea. Kind of like the Springfield Bridge from downtown into where the Big E is located. Not sure if you're familiar with that, but Annabella might reach out to Leslie with that example. So that's another great comment there. So that is currently what we have. We have a little bit more time left if folks want to continue to chime in and offer some more comment. I think maybe we could Leslie, anything else you wanted to add before we move to a summary of what we've heard so far?
Just that there seems to be a general concern over safety, and that we acknowledge that concern, and that as part of our stakeholder interviews, you know, we had planned on interviewing, you know, some, I think, Waterbury police safety officer to kind of get their perspective on things. And, you know, and if you have any recommendations on other people that you think would be good for us to interview regarding, you know, safety issues in along the corridor, you know, we'd be open to hearing about that. But other than that, that's it.
Great. Well, I'll certainly encourage everybody to continue to comment. Feel free to keep asking questions in the questions box, and I'll try to switch back and forth if more come in. But in the meantime, you can see one of our teammates, Catherine, she's diligently rearranging all these comments and putting them into categories for us. So I'll start by reading what we heard on the Route 8 to Railroad overpass, and I don't know if you can zoom in on that, Mark. I guess one thing you can see, there's we've kept these in categories, so you can see where we heard kind of where we got the most comments and the fewest. And Mark, if you scan over just real quick to the right side of the screen, we also have a bunch of general comments here, so you can see what we're talking about. And actually, before I get into that, there is one more comment from CJ. What considerations do you have with respect to flooding? Waterbury suffered from this enormously in the mid-20th century, and I'm guessing this entire area was affected and would be affected again should there be more flooding in the future. That's certainly something that we can take a look at the history of and see what impacts we might be able to make on that. Good one for the general comments there. So, so for our westernmost section, Route 8 to the railroad overpass, we heard that there are frequent and wide curb cuts, minimal to no snow shoulder. Sidewalks are in poor condition, deficient on the ADA front, and very little street greenery. We heard a lot of comments regarding congestion, and these two, you know, this kind of the way we've split these sections right at the railroad overpass, the Sperry Street issues, which might be in the next section, they certainly back up into under the overpass in our first section. And the other comment we got there was lots of eastbound left turns before Thomaston causing congestion. We heard that a couple times. And the drainage issues under the bridge were also important. We heard that we heard in both the first and second sections that we talked about that there might be good opportunity for bike lanes in those areas, and the potential to maybe beautify that overpass a little bit would be a good opportunity in that first section. Moving on to what we heard about the section for the railroad, between the railroad pass and Meadow Street, potentials for more parking. We heard that in a few areas. Not enough sidewalk again for folks trying to walk along this area. The railroad bridge area, low clearance again. Drainage issues again, we heard. The no crossing, no pedestrian crossing between Thomaston and the Big Apple Motel. So, you know, maybe a opportunity for a mid-block crossing there would benefit from traffic calming and decrease of the roadway width. So that's a good one for us to look at. Consider allowing left turns to Willow to eliminate the cut-throughs. And as I mentioned, the bike lanes, comments about panhandlers in the area. Could be, we heard maybe what we call a general kind of neutral comment on the 7-Eleven. Could be a new occupant coming there soon. Comments about you know, interacting with state-run projects, potentially a connection to Judd Street, and yeah, another comment about homelessness in the area. We want to go down to the Meadow Street to the green. So you moving comments around?
Actually, it moved one of their comments. Sorry about that. I think it's back.
So a good strength in this area, the islands. So utilizing the street width where there's islands today could be a major opportunity for aesthetic enhancements. The area there's speeding issues in the eastbound direction, we heard, as a problem. Lots of concrete striped islands in the road. Again, you know, we'll look at that as a potential opportunity. As far as bikes and pedestrians go, the crosswalks could be an opportunity to enhance those with, you know, could be some stamped pavement or other painted ideas there. Not enough sidewalk in the vicinity of the food pantry that the church runs. Could be an opportunity for wider sidewalks there. Potential link ups for the Greenway on Meadow Street. Well, that's something we can take a look at. Didn't get as many comments on there. And then for the green, if you want to go over there, we heard about the turn restrictions for the buses. Potentially an opportunity for improved bus accommodations for the regional bus service, and more places for people to sit and wait for the bus generally. Again, similar, you know, the comment about the crosswalks also applies certainly to this area around the green. We see maybe more police enforcement could be desired in this area, and yeah, the regional bus comment is on there again. There was one other comment that came in, I'm just picking up here, from Art, that illumination under the railroad overpass. If we didn't have that in there, or if I missed over it, we should make sure that one is on there. And then, so that's what we have that's what we heard from you all tonight. And I know we heard from a good number of people who signed in, for sure. I definitely see a lot of names in the attendee list who didn't chime in at all during this meeting tonight, and we're very happy to hear from you moving forward if you are, you know, if ideas do come to mind. And I guess maybe we can go through these general overall comments too. The lighting again comes up. Storefronts and facades, something we heard about. Concerns about parking, definitely something that we heard. ADA accessibility, potential for more street trees, street lighting at a pedestrian scale would be good. Fewer curb cuts, storm flooding, and we got some good information about the Tiger Grant. And then we have an idea for a stakeholder interview that came in as well. Anything that I'm missing there, Leslie, before we start moving to talk about next steps? Cool. So Mark, I'll turn it back over to you. But again, I just want to go ahead and repeat that we are definitely still, this is still in the early stages. So you can keep reaching out throughout the project. And go ahead, Mark.
All right, great. Thanks, Matt. So I just want to talk about just briefly the project website that has been developed. I mentioned this earlier on. We're going to be keeping track of all the information documentation that's been developed as part of this study under westmainstudy.com, which our subconsultant FHI has been helping with. And I did want to just pull that up briefly here for you. This is the website. So there's a nice project overview here on the front. We have a map depicting the project limits and the streets in the area. We will have information on the public informational meetings here as they are scheduled. We're having the first one right now, but as I mentioned, the next one will be coming later in the spring as we actually get into more of a workshop type format with that one, where we will be brainstorming and maybe sketching some actual alternative concepts, and then moving ahead with our final public involvement meeting beyond that, when we'll be kind of presenting everything that we've come up with. There's some other facets of this website. We have our project team up here. I mentioned our project advisory committee that's helping us guide this study and giving us some good ideas and thoughts on recommendations. And this is a list of everyone who sits on that committee. We have the timeline and the project schedule, which I presented earlier, that's up here. We have ways that you can get involved. The public involvement process, what we're doing right now, is certainly one method, but I mentioned before, we've got social media sites, Facebook page and Twitter. We'll be holding our stakeholder interviews. And we also have an online survey with an interactive map. And let me click on this right here and kind of show you what you can do here. So we have the map, and you click the Start Here button, and you can select a pin type where you actually can enter a comment, whether it's a walking or biking related, transit, driving, parking, or business access. You can select, choose a category where you have a concern. So maybe I have a walking concern, and I'm going to say, it's very difficult. This mid-block crossing by the Big Apple is very difficult to cross here. It's unsafe, so I can put a pin, and then I can select a category here and just say, this is, I can select whatever's most appropriate here. So maybe crosswalk too long, and then add a comment, and then submit it. And then, the pin will appear, and we can actually go through and look at all these comments as the project goes on. And this is just another good way that we can obtain input. And I see there's actually several pins here already. So some of you have found this. I select this pin and bring it up. Here's a comment that has been made, no way to cross in this area, need a bike lane. Somebody concurred, I was almost hit here. So, this is all great information for us to weave into the study as we move along. Let's see here. So going back to the website, we're going to have a documents page as well. where all of the information will be uploaded as we move along. Our project advisory and public informational meeting notes will be uploaded here, and we'll be having our technical documents that we prepare throughout the course of the study. As they're developed, will be uploaded here for everyone to view and see what we've come up with. So this will be a great resource for keeping up to date on what's going on with the project. I mentioned as well, we have a Facebook page, and the link is here, that we've just got up and running. There's not a ton of information on it yet, but that will be a good source for information as we move along. NVCOG is a Twitter account that Leslie will be maintaining and posting updates on meetings and other things coming up with the project, deliverables as they're posted. So that's another good source. And moving forward, what are the next steps ahead? Just to hit on it again, we're really just getting started here. We're in our existing conditions analysis phase, but we're moving into alternatives analysis soon as we get into the spring. And likely our next public informational meeting will be announced in the relatively near future, and will be sometime in the late March, early April timeframe. And we certainly hope that you'll all come out for that one. So again, I just want to thank everyone for their time this evening, and we really appreciate you all listening to us and giving us some valuable input here as we start this project off. And we hope that you'll rejoin us at the next couple of public informational meetings, and continue to help us inform this project and move along with our recommendations. So thank you, everyone. And I don't know if anyone else has anything to add, or Leslie or anyone else.
I just wanted to say that in the chat box, we have the links to the Facebook page, to the website, and then I put my email address in if anyone wants to email me or has any questions or comments. But just want to reiterate that since we're in the early stages, we really, if you want to add your comments to the map, that would be super helpful, and that we really do want your input. So I really appreciate you guys, everyone, taking the time to come tonight.
Agree. All right. Well, thank you again, everyone, and we'll be all talking with you soon. Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.
Take care.
Night.